Welcome back. This year I'm going to try a couple of different rafts in my deep water culture beds. In the past I have always used the Dow blue board, and now it's DuPont where I can't get the Dow anymore. And you can see this raft is in really bad shape. And the current stuff that I'm able to get doesn't have the fire retardants added into it because it's a foundation styrofoam. And it's just going to get buried under the ground. But in most areas of the country, there are fire retardants added into that board, and you really don't want that leaching into your system. So one of the also problems with that is that it degrades in the UV light, and they're really difficult to wash off. So as you sort of try to scrub at them, the top coating of the plastics essentially comes off, and you basically get this powder residue, and so I really don't want that getting into the system. So we're going to try to be a little bit more environmentally conscious with using this, and try a couple different things. So the first thing I have is a few of these Bootstrap Farmer boards. They're a styrofoam board with a really tough coating on top of it. They're really nice, they're fairly flexible, and I think they're going to work really well. That thick coating on them makes it nice so you can actually scrub them off. The downside is they are fairly expensive. And then the second thing I'm going to try is my own rafts, which is the same styrofoam board, but I have painted these with a couple coats of exterior latex paint. Now, as a caveat, this is a thing that I can make. I have a CNC cutting table so I can cut all the little holes. And then in my shop I'm able to, I attempted to spray this, but my paint was a little too thick, so then I just rolled it all on. So not a big deal to do it, but it's pretty time consuming to do this. And it actually takes up quite a bit of paint. I made up 16 of these, and it took a gallon of paint. And so that's about $3.50 a raft to do, plus another roughly $6 for the raft. So for under 10 bucks, you can make up your own raft. That doesn't include all the labor that went into this, and of course my machining time. So you might be able to, let's say, double the cost of that. Versus the Bootstrap Farmer raft, I think they were about 75 bucks a piece, $70 a piece. I'd have to look that up. I'll put a price on the screen. But I honestly think these are going to last essentially forever. The coating on them is not quite as thick. Definitely not quite as thick, and they're still subject to getting abused in the system. So I might get a few years out of this, where I think the Bootstrap Farmer ones are going to last forever. If you're familiar with any of their products, I also got a whole bunch of their 1020 trays for doing my seedlings, and they make a really nice thick plastic tray that's essentially indestructible. And if you get standard trays at the box stores or something, they're very thin, they fall apart after a couple years. And so I've really been happy with the Bootstrap Farmer stuff, and this is not a paid promotion to give them kudos or anything, but you know, I'll give them credit where credit's due of making a really nice product. I like to germinate the beans outside of the rafts, just so I know that I'm going to put good viable plants in each raft. So I like to get these started by just taking a plate, putting several layers of paper towels on them, and thoroughly soaking the paper towel, and then just spread some beans on it and cover it up. And after this is about 3 or 4 days, they've germinated, and I know which ones I can use. Now, these are all beans that I had saved from last year's harvest, and didn't properly store them, so I actually didn't think they were going to germinate very well. But these have done pretty good. So we'll get these planted in the GrowGrips and inside of our rafts. Now, these are 18-hole rafts, so I am going to plant these every other hole and not jam them in too tight. The bean takes up a lot of space. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for the homemade rafts. So we'll get a good side-by-side comparison throughout the growing season. I've been negligent filming the progress of the beans, and I've actually been picking them for the last week or so, so that's why they look a little disheveled, because I've been digging through them. But once they start coming in, you got to keep up with them every couple of days. The yellow beans are much easier to pick because you can actually see them against the leaves. I have a tough time with the green beans, and I miss them every once in a while. If you calculate out the cost per square foot, the green beans really don't make a whole lot of money, just because of the length of time it takes, the amount you get per area, and the labor involved with picking them. But they do sell well, and in the farm stand, when I advertise it, they sell out every week, and I think it helps draw in other people when I advertise it that we have them, because people keep asking for them, and when they pick it up, then they also pick up some lettuce and some other things. So even though it's not a huge money maker, it's sort of a lost leader. Once everything's harvested, I weigh them out. These little containers hold 12 ounces. So weigh it out, so it's a little more than that. There's 12.5, close enough. And close it all up. I think for $4 a pound, that's a little under the normal market value, but I don't like to rip people off. This is just a hobby-ish to help pay the bills for the electricity for the farm, so it's not too bad. Sorry about the noise of the fans. It's pretty hot out today. So we are at the end of what I call the productive cycle of these beans. There are a few still on here. They are still blossoming a little bit, but once you get past that initial curve, you just don't get a whole lot out of this. So I'm going to pull these out and plant the new batch, so that way this fall I have another batch of beans to sell. These yellow beans have done pretty well for themselves. I should have enough to sell a couple more pounds. So we'll get these picked and pull out the plants. The stem of the plant is fairly woody and brittle, so it's easier just to snap them off, pull the plant out. The stalks are very aggressive and get quite large, so they essentially destroy the GrowGrips. There's nothing left to them, so they have to be treated as disposable because they're not coming back from that. Sometimes they don't get quite as big, but it still gets pretty damaged. Not worth saving. Now we're up to the Bootstrap Farmer rafts. I had printed out these little covers. They did a pretty good job on the holes I didn't use. There's no algae or anything in it, but of course the leaves sort of covered up everything anyway. Just like my homemade rafts, since the holes are the same size, these GrowGrips with the stems really wedge themselves in there on some of these plants that got bigger. I may have to cut this one out. There it goes. Not much left of that GrowGrip. So to compare the homemade raft versus the Bootstrap Farmer raft, I would say the Bootstrap Farmer raft definitely wins out on the battle, but it is much more expensive than a do-it-yourself. These things are super slippery, and anything that gets stuck to them just comes right off, so they're really easy to wash off. Unlike the latex paint, everything is still sticking. It takes a lot more rubbing to get them cleaned off. They're both made out of a styrofoam material, so the holes do deflect a little bit over time, especially with those bigger plants, but if it's just going to have something like lettuce in it, neither of them are going to cause any problem. I did get a little bit of peeling. I showed that at the beginning of the video in a couple spots. I don't know if there's some oil on here or whatever, but that's what I'm guessing. Other areas where it's not oiled or whatever, it doesn't seem to come off, but I did scratch a couple spots and it still peels off. The material, the coating that they use on the Bootstrap Farmer stuff, this stuff is indestructible. So for the longer term, these would be much, much better. I already got my seedlings going and they're well overgrown, so I'll try not to break too many roots on them, but they look like they should be fine. And on the outro, maybe I'll do a quick analysis per square foot of how much I make on beans versus some other crops. So if I have a chance, I'll throw that in here. And once again, thanks for coming along, and we'll see you soon.